One of the questions that I get asked the most often is, how did you get started? How did you get started with your art? How did you get started with your business? What has your journey been like? And so today I am here to tell you all about my journey. If you're new here, my name is Mackenzie. I'm a pen and ink artist and illustrator who creates whimsical drawings rooted in nature, storytelling, joy, imagination, and curiosity. So my journey officially began in 2021, but I think it's important that we go all the way back, way before high school, way before middle school, way before the business was ever a thing, and start when I was little, because that really is the basis of my business. I grew up in a very artistic family. My parents are both artists. My dad is a wonderful, realistic pencil drawer. He is also a graphic designer by trade, and one of the most talented people I've ever met or known. My mom also is an oil painter. When I was little, she did a lot of landscapes, but she always had this whimsical side to her as well. I think that's where I get a lot of my whimsy from, really, is from her. My aunt is an interior designer. My granddad was an architect. Other people in my family were crafty and artistic. Growing up in and around art, that was the norm to me. It was weird to go to other people's houses and not see a lot of art hanging up in their house, because our house was full of art. My mom's paintings were hanging all over the place. Photographs my parents took in college would be hanging in the bathroom. That was the norm to me. So when I would go to my friends' houses and only see photographs on the wall or a generic piece of art from a store with a quote on it, I was really shocked, because that was just not the world that I was living in. It makes sense to me now why all my friends when I was little loved coming to our house, because it was just very creative and eccentric, and we didn't necessarily have matching furniture, and my parents had antiques. It was just a very creative environment to grow up in. Now, all of that said, art was not my main interest growing up. I think that surprises a lot of people, but that was not my main interest. I grew up doing competitive dance. That was what I loved. I did that all the way up through high school, kind of stopped toward the end of high school in order to focus on, getting into college and going through all of that stuff. So yeah, art was really not my main thing, which is surprising. One thing that I probably will do another video on, growing up, I had a hard time coming up with ideas. Like crying in my room because I have this project due that's kind of creative and I don't know what to do. In reality, that kind of stemmed from perfectionism, and I was really serious in school. I was super studious and did not want to make a B, which there was no external pressure telling me, this has to be perfect. This was all stemming from within inside me. I was always a perfectionist. And I think the way school was, while I loved school, it really kind of hindered me creatively. Not necessarily because of the curriculum, but because of how I approached the schoolwork. So even when we did have creative projects or were creative in school, it was really difficult for me. I think a lot of people think I was just this creative person all the time, and that's not true. I did have creative moments. A lot of my creative moments happened before middle school, before school got really intense, and after college, once the school had kind of died down and I was left to be a little bit more free with what I was doing with my time. I think this is a great example of how creativity is a skill. It really is a skill that you have to learn. Some people come across it more easily than others. Also in high school, I did not take any art classes. I had a very full schedule. I really did not have the opportunity to take a lot of art classes during that time. I did take art history, which was very interesting, but obviously it was not doing art. So let's flash forward to college. This is around 2015. I changed my major quite a few times. I started as a psychology major, switched to English, and then when I was having to write a paper every single week, that transitioned into film studies, which is not necessarily what you think. I was not making films. I was not learning how to, hold the camera and do cinematography. I was literally watching films and writing about them like you would in an English degree reading books, but I was doing that with film. That degree I partly chose so that I could take all these different electives because I had so many different interests. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved psychology, I loved architecture, I loved the idea of teaching. I've always wanted to teach. It's part of why I started this YouTube channel. I thought about art, I thought about screenwriting, I thought about business and all of those things. Really, I think that education that allowed me to take all these different subjects that I was interested in helped formulate where I went with my art a few years later. I did take 3 specifically art classes during college. They were the basic drawing 1, drawing 2, color and composition, all the classes that the intro art majors have to take. I got really into art at that point. So finally, around the age of 20, 21, I got a lot more interested in art. I got a lot more interested in possibly teaching art. And I got really into like paper sculptures. And I basically told everyone, I was like, I don't like drawing. It's not very fun. And you can see where we are now. So a lot changed between then and now. I graduated from college in 2018. I still did not really know what I wanted to do. During that year, I decided that I would possibly go back to school, get a master's in art so that I could teach at the college level because, again, I was really interested in teaching. I really do think I'm someone who is happiest when I am teaching other people about things. Although I've never been in an official teacher role, I just really love helping to inspire other people, helping other people to reach their goals and find their niche or niche, however you say the word. Decided at that point that I really wanted to go back to school. I really wanted to get my master's in art. The problem with that was that I didn't have a portfolio. Also during this time, I was working for a small business at the time that was really starting to take off and grow. That kind of gave me an intro into how small businesses run, what the method of wholesale and retail and online selling looks like. Now, back to the portfolio. When you apply to a Master's of Art, you have to have a portfolio of about 20 images usually. They want them to be kind of cohesive and showcase where you want to go with your art. And because I was not an art major, I did not have anything I felt I wanted to showcase at that point. So I started to experiment with a lot of different things. From the comfort of my home, where I could be experimental and creative and not have somebody judging me while I'm figuring it out. Art class was always hard to me because I wanted to experiment and figure things out on my own before I was critiqued on it. Art class was hard because you're being critiqued while you're working on the project, usually not just at the very end. To me, that was also a hindrance to creativity. I really am a big proponent of allowing people the space to experiment and try to create before you give your feedback about it. That's where creativity comes from. It comes from space. I am going to do another video on this because this is a super interesting topic. I told you guys I loved sculpture and sculptural stuff. I was doing stuff with paper and foam core, and so I started doing that. But then I felt like some of it was turning out really good, some of it was kind of lame. Sometimes your art turns out lame, it's okay. I decided that I was going to do some series based on poems because I loved literature, I loved reading. I started with these poems about change that I really loved because time has always been a big theme in my work, and I didn't know how I wanted to execute it. I originally imagined it as a sculpture again because I did not like drawing because it was boring. I ultimately decided, well, I've always liked pen and ink. I've always liked that style, so that's what I'm gonna try. It turned out pretty well. This was basically my very first serious attempt at pen and ink artwork, and my style has like super evolved and changed since then, but I realized that I really enjoyed drawing with the pen. Over the next year, I decided that that's what I was gonna do with my portfolio, was pen drawings. I did pen drawing, and I did another pen drawing, and then I did another pen drawing, and then about a year later, I was thinking, well, maybe I don't really want to go back to school, because I really like where my art is going. I really like this, and I've always wanted to do my own business. Remember, I was working for a small business at the time, so that was really at the forefront of my mind. Around my birthday, which was in August that year, decided not to go back to school and to instead start a stationery company based around my pen and ink drawings. For the remainder of 2020, I made a website. I got my website online. I got some greeting cards going. I did research on printing. I did research on envelopes and pricing and all kinds of things. Got some orders from friends and family and a couple of people I didn't know, which was very exciting. The very first order I got from someone that I didn't know was awesome. It was such a great feeling. At the end of 2020, I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna make this into a business. And so in 2021, got my business license and officially made Mackenzie Myrick Studio a thing. I went back and forth a lot on whether I wanted to name my stationery company something different. I've always gone back and forth about this. Because my art is so different, and you just don't see a lot of pen and ink artwork these days, I really wanted the art to be tied to me as a person, as an artist. I didn't want it to just be another stationery company. It doesn't look like just another stationery company, frankly. That's why I went with Mackenzie Myrick, and that's why I've continued to stick with Mackenzie Myrick as my business name. It makes it more personable, which for me in business is especially important. I connect better with businesses where I kind of see the owner, I kind of see what the behind the scenes are. That's a little bit of my backstory. If you have questions, drop them in the comments below. I will happily answer them. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on Instagram at Mackenzie Myrick Art. You can follow along on my website, MackenzieMyrick.com, or subscribe to my email list. Or I'm also on Facebook and TikTok, but I don't use those quite as much. So, yeah, until next time. Hope your day is full of joy, imagination, and curiosity.